my research, my work, my experience in social media and new media within businesses, governments, and organizations to help create an adaptable infrastructure at the management level. Create an adaptable infrastructure. Now, what does that mean, right? So my last book was called Engage.
Right.
And Engage was really written to empower that individual that recognized that Facebook, Twitter, emerging networks were transformative, right? And it was their manifesto to think about this at a much deeper, meaningful level. Okay? And it was a prescriptive manuscript that helped them create strategies and tactical programs that would really matter to the people that they were trying to reach. You know, how to even figure out who that was and what they wanted and how to best, literally engage. But they ran into challenges. The more successful they were, the higher the visibility of their work within the executive ranks. The challenge is that the executive ranks mostly don't use these networks. It's their kids, it's their grandkids. That's okay. But in order to be a leader within an organization, you have to actually earn that role. I wanted to write a book that said this wasn't about social media. I can take Facebook, I can take Twitter, I can take any names of any network out of this book. And what you will get is the recognition that's a different type of consumer. Whether it's B2C, B2B, whether it's government to constituent. It's a different type of individual that forces a different type of business model to complement how you've been connecting to your existing consumer bases. They don't change, but this emerging connected consumer is what the book's about. And it says, here's how big it is, and here's how it's impacting your organization. And they're changing everything.
How big is it?
It's different for every company, but I say how to figure that out.
Okay. What about globally? How big is this connected?
Oh, well, we could just use Facebook alone, right? So Facebook alone today is the size of the entire internet in 2004. So that's over 800 million people. Twitter has 200 million people. The numbers are interesting, but the reason why I say this is not a book about social media is because it's not about that. How many people have smartphones, right? It's like saying how many people have lungs. It's really starting to become pervasive. So what I say is, it's about the technology, how it's transforming people's behavior, how they make decisions, how they learn, how they influence, and how they're influenced. So it really just says, let's not even talk about technology. Let's just look at how you would recognize that there are new touch points and what's important to them, and how you as an organization are structured, and you can see the gap. And so it paints the gap on both sides, and then the last half of the book really says how you bring both sides together.
And how do you bring both sides together?
That's 200 pages worth of it. It really recognizes this. It actually comes down to you, right? You have an important role in the organization. Someone's not going to say, hey, we've been this stale business this whole time. We're not recognizing this opportunity. We're not changing. Because they think they're changing. They're getting on Facebook. They're getting on Twitter. But when you look at how they're using the networks, they're actually using them the way they've used broadcast media in any medium, right? Take a message, take a value proposition, take a contest, take a campaign, and push it. Oh, customer service? Yeah, we'll respond to you, but we're going to put you back into the machine or our call center because that's how we're structured to deal with you. We don't have enough people to be agents. Some do. They're building and they're forcing new infrastructures, but that's what this is about. So it says, within your organization, you've got one of two choices to make. Or actually, one choice to make, but you're presented with two options. And that is, do you want to be a social media champion within your organization to help your organization engage where people are engaging? Because that's important. And that requires a dedicated role, strategist. Or, do you want to recognize what is happening as a result of that behavior? And do you want to be the change agent? Someone's got to go fight the fight. Someone's got to be a politician. Someone's got to be a clairvoyant. Someone's got to be a research analyst to say this is what's taking place, to what extent, how it's changing, and here's what we need to do about it. So that's who this book is written for, because the last book was written to the social champion.
So this is for the change agent.
Yep.
We've had a quote in here. I'd love to think of Siri, no you can't. That was what I wanted to ask. You didn't stop to think. Expand upon that a little bit. Isn't that really saying you're not listening to me?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of research that shows how companies are using social media or new media, and how much money they're spending on it, how many people support it. It's good data, right? But that's rear view mirror data. It's not front windshield insights. And by that I mean, have you ever stopped to ask your customer or the people you're trying to reach if they feel that they're getting value out of your engagement? And a lot of companies say no. They've never asked their customer what they want. And so IBM did a great report. It was published earlier in the year. You can find it on Google, by the way. And it said, what do you executives think that customers want in social networks? And then they went to the customers. What do you want from your businesses in social networks? And it was night and day. So that's what I meant.
Talk about digital Darwinism just a little bit.
Digital Darwinism is really sort of the underlying theme of what's happening here in the book, and that is because of behavioral change, right? How people find and share information, how people learn, how people shape brands or experiences of others or decisions of others. It says that if you are not recognizing how this is unfolding before you and to what extent it's impacting your business right now and also for tomorrow, because the predictive analytics is nothing new. The reality is that you subject yourself to natural selection, right? Companies that aren't adapting to opportunities or leading decisions, they're going to be relegated to responding to them. And we all know what happens when you get relegated to responding to them. The idea is that businesses, organizations, things are just evolving, and you can either evolve along with it or you can become a subject of digital darwinism.
Okay. Talk about the comment you made. Well, talk about the connected consumer a little bit. How is the connected consumer? How are they different? How are they changing the business marketplace?
The connected consumer is what I call a third category of consumers. It's someone who is dependent on the smartphone, probably has an iPad or some type of tablet, also has a laptop. They watch television with one of those devices on their lap. They share everything that they do, what they experience, what they buy, what they're thinking about, how they're feeling. It's an individual who's just quite literally connected. But it's not just about social media, it's just about technology, how that empowers them, how that helps them do things that make their life, at least the semblance of it being better. The reason why they're different is because how they start a decision cycle and how they end it is not at all like the traditional consumer of the past. And so that's why I say that a business needs to recognize who this person is, how they affect the organization today, and how it's growing over time. Because the channels that they're using, even if they're using social channels today, are probably missing the mark, right? There's a chart in the book that says you're either connecting with their heart, their mind, or you're shooting over their head. And many times the connected consumer, we think we're hitting them because we're in the right places, but we're just not doing or saying the right things, and thus missing them.
Not talking their language, not getting inside the conversation.
Or recognizing what it is they value.
All right, you made some comments about I trust you enough to be connected to you. Can you expand upon that just a little?
Yeah, I trust you enough to be connected to you because I'm mindful of the people who I follow. I started out in social networks, and when I say me, I'm just referring to just sort of the general me, as an individual. I started in social networks, started following everybody and anybody, and got a great experience out of that until I found that I just couldn't manage my stream. It was like my inbox. I started to hate getting in there. Started to feel very heavy and weighty, and then I started to curate who I followed and really started to think about why I follow people. Then I started to be mindful of, well, I actually am not getting enough on this subject, so I went to find people who were authoritative in that, and started to really filter and constantly filter my stream. So I have really created my own ecosystem in a way of people that I trust, respect, admire, and like. And I changed that over time. That's where it's heading.
Right.
So that's why what's really important is this becomes about the interest graph, not about the social graph. So you can connect to all the people you know all you want, but a lot of maturation on the social front is also saying that you might create a secondary presence, or you just might have a really curated first presence within each one of these networks that's mindful of connecting with people who share similar interests.
Wouldn't you also say it's about the trust graph? Isn't that the real magic?
Well, I would, except you can't measure it. I can measure interest.
Okay.
I would call it press graph, but I can measure interest today. And I have a real big graph on that. You see reputation graph, you see all these different words for graph. But if I can't measure it, I can't call it a graph. And if I can't chart it, I can't call it a graph. And I've been able to chart interest graphs.
I got one quote here I'd like to use in reference to the headline for the article, if the editorial people approve it. If it's not worth sharing, then it's spam. Because I think that's everything you're saying in a nutshell. What you need to do is add value to everything you're doing, look for ways to increase the simplicity of how a person can interpret, the speed of how they can interpret it, all of these aspects. You need to deliver value by adding value in everything we do.
Well, I think you just said it really well.
Thank you.
The only thing I would add to that is this. We have a responsibility to the people that we're connected to or who are connected to us to deliver 2 minutes, right, to deliver value back to the stream. And there was a study conducted recently by Exactly Target, and you can find this on Google too.
Okay.
They asked people why you don't follow businesses on Facebook, and they said that they were worried that the content coming from businesses into their stream, and if they interacted with it in a way that wasn't meaningful, would end up spamming the walls of their friends. And they were thinking about this, right? And businesses don't realize that the savvy individuals are thinking about this. They're just trying to get the like, or the comment, or the interaction, and they call that engagement, and they measure that as engagement, which is ridiculous.
Right.
See, so engagement, and I define it in this book, engagement is sure how a business and a consumer interact, right, in the network of relevance. But that doesn't matter. What matters is